Hi, everyone. This is the lifting radio show for Thursday, January 19th, 2017. I am Christopher Stephen Jacobs, one of your hosts. Joanna Michaels, my co-host, is sitting right here with me, and we would like to welcome you to our first show dedicated to questions and answers from you, the listener. How are you doing tonight, Joanna?
I am doing great, Chris, and I'm so excited that we are doing a question and answer show. And I'm happy to report that we have received quite a few questions via email already, so we're going to be quite busy tonight. For those of you listening live, you can ask questions too. Just remember, this is not the time for a personal reading. You can ask anything, just make it general enough so that everyone can get something out of it. If you want to ask a question during the show, please press *6. Then you will be asked if you want to be placed in the question queue. It's going to tell you, press 1 if you want to be placed in the question queue. And then we'll answer the calls in the order that they have been received. But before we get started, we would like to have a blessing for the call. So Chris, can you give us a blessing?
Sure. It goes something like this. This came from a guide of mine that calls himself Malachi. May the show be blessed with the answers people are seeking, and may this show people the way to find their very own truth. Back to you, Joanna.
Okay. Explain how we are tricked and how we unknowingly allow it in. And then a follow-up is, how do we keep from being tricked?
That is actually a fantastic question. One of the most common things I see with deception, well, actually two of the most common things I see with deception are in dreams and in channeling, or in just everyday thoughts. What I mean by this is this. In dreams, somebody's asleep, somebody's having a dream of an angelic encounter. And say this person reaches out to this angel, either shakes hand, hugs, what have you. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but if this is a malevolent entity that is trying to build a bridge to you in some way, shape, or form, you've just agreed to let that entity into your space. That is the unknowing part of it. This happens to a lot of clients I deal with. I find out there's been an unknowing bridge built through the dream realm. And in everyday thoughts and in channeling, say you're another seer, for instance, and you see an angel and you let them into your space. The same rules apply. You've just allowed that particular entity into your space without checking their ID at the door. The real ones will not be offended by this. The ones that are offended by it are usually the malevolent entities to begin with. How do we keep from being tricked? You have to just know protection, like we said in the very first episode in our very first blog. You just have to keep that in mind, that you are part of creation itself. You are creation itself. You're part of the one. You keep this in mind. You build that internal protection up, the infinite core, as I call it. You build that up and surround yourself in that infinite core and shield. And you call on the guides, the real guides, when need be, and make sure Source is brought into this argument as well. Make sure Source helps you in the discernment process in which of who is actually coming to you. So that is the answer for that question.
All right. The next question is it true that the sun cannot be seen from the moon, and why?
This was an interesting question as well. I had Malachi answer this one last night. I typed his channeling out here. This was quite lengthy, so I made sure to do this in advance. I will start his answer now. This is an oddity for sure. However, the reason for this is a simple one. Your moon ship, as it is called, rides the tides, ebbs, and flows, as it were, of the multiverse, and thusly exists within several different universes at one time. Are there different moons in multiple parallel universes? Of course there are. Are there different versions of your sun? Of course there are, dear ones. Now, as to why it is not visible from the moon's surface itself. Sometimes the moonship can indeed block the sun, but for most of the time, the beings that currently inhabit the moon do not like the sunlight much, especially along the surface. Hence, vampires burning in the sunlight. And he started to laugh from this. And he said, next question. But before we go on to the next question, I want to clarify a little bit what he meant by the whole vampire thing. There are reptilians and Draco on the moon, and also human hybrids with Draco. This is where a lot of the vampire myths came from. He was giving a bit of a reference as to some of the beings that were inhabiting the moon interior. So, next question.
Okay. If you sense malevolent acts coming from family or friends as if they are being influenced, what do we do?
All right. I believe this is actually a job for one of the guides tonight. This is not one that I pre-typed the answer out to. So we'll see which guides are around that want to answer this particular question. All right. I'm going to see if it's Malachi or any of the others that want to come through. Okay. This is Malachi. He takes a minute to come in. Yes, dear ones, my name is indeed Malachi. I am the son of the being you know of as Michael. My answer to this question about malevolent acts coming through family is this, dear ones. In the instance where oppression and possession has taken hold so tightly of your dearest loved ones, I say this to you. In the instance of this, do not fight them back. Do not engage them in arguing. Do not engage them with anger and hostility. This only makes the situation worse. The being that is inhabiting your family member or family members wants these fights to occur. Always remember this. These beings want and need these fights to occur. They feed on this energy as a constant source of sustenance. So, in order to break this cycle, see your family members as indeed your family members. See and feel the love you feel for them. This is what will set them free in the end. These principles that I tell you now are indeed what is needed in order to set your loved ones free. This is my answer to this question. Thank you. All right. Next question.
Okay. The next question has a little note to it. I'll just read the whole thing. Chris, I sent you a 2-minute clip from David's interview with Corey, where he says in the next month, the financial system will collapse, and there will be a process of putting in a new one, and that all planets, on all planets where there is freedom in the universe, there is no Babylonian type of money system. And by the way, Anastasia wrote about how the first idea of money and its ability to control humans came into existence over 4,000 years ago in Russia. So what is your answer to this one?
All right. This is one that Malachi pre-channeled for me as of last night. So I will read his answer. Some people may be put a little off by his answer, but this is pretty direct and to the point. Dear ones, this system that you currently have will indeed collapse, but no harm will come to any, and I mean any, of your worldly assets. Just focus and manifest the best world that you can, and make sure, above all else, that you discern for yourselves who gives the information and why they give it. It is to co-create. Is it to co-create a bad future? Or is it for the highest good of all involved? Next question.
All right. Next question is, an ancient castle has been found on Antarctica because it is the ruins of Atlantis. What about the ruins found under Malta? Tell us more about those that built these structures and why they were abandoned.
This is another interesting question. Malachi yet again answered it. He was on a roll last night. So, we'll get started. Give me just a moment to clear my throat. Sorry, doing the channeling gives me severe cotton mouth, so give me just a second. Dear ones, Antarctica is indeed the not-so-lost continent of Atlantis. It has always been in front of your eyes. Thusly, the ruins under Malta were also part of Atlantis. Many outposts were created in the event of a total and complete collapse. However, when Atlantis flash froze, quote-unquote, it left behind much in the way of technology and scientific records. But the Agartha network has not been so keen to let your human cabal, as well as other alien factions, as you call them, gain control of the former Atlantis. Now, as to who built all of the wonders that you and all are so very curious about. In the beginning, there was man, and in this beginning there were men and women who traveled the stars in search of new places to call home. What I am saying to you is this. The way all stories about Atlantis are true is the same as all stories, save one, about Nibiru being true. The one falsehood being that there will be a disaster caused as a result of a so-called Planet X. Next question, good and kind sir.
All right. The next question says, what about Andromedans? Is Joyous and the Frog People from one of their planets?
The only answer that Malachi gave is that yes, he is, but I'm going to expand on this. Malachi was a bit of a smartass, so I'm going to expand on this just a little bit. Our guide named Joyous comes from a species known as Ligurians. Their planet is known as Ligurius. It sits on the inner edge of the Andromedan galaxy towards their core. It also connects to several other planets in that system. Joyous's people told me that once they were oppressed by a native species in that quadrant of space, he didn't identify that particular species. But he did tell me this species helped them to grow from this. Therefore, they eventually became a spacefaring race, reached out into the universe, and eventually made it to our galaxy and made it to the Pleiades, where they teamed up with races like the Nordic Pleiadians and Chewanda's people, which were the Native American-looking race, the ones they call the ancient Mayans. So that's the answer to this question.
All right, this is kind of a second part. Are some of the Andromedans not so nice and wanting to control other races?
Well, I do know there's at least one malevolent one there. That's the one Joyous was referencing. I just don't know who it is. There are at least 3 different races from Andromeda that I know of that interact with people here on Earth. From what I've seen, they have been nice. But as I said, I do not negate the fact that there are more than likely a few malevolent races within the Andromedan galaxy as well.
All right, this next one's a little bit long. I'm going to read the whole thing. It says, okay, is this what is being revealed in the 1956 fiction story by Eric Frank Russell of the UK called Legwork? In that story, that ET race had used telepathy to control other beings' minds within a 1-mile radius to do their bidding and had conquered 50 planets before attempting to conquer Earth. But the U.S. military captured their spaceship, took it apart, and built a bit better version and went into space before 1960. Who inspired Russell to write such a story? Was it Americans? He was British. Was it MI6 or a friendly ET? It sounds like Roswell. What do you think about that, Chris?
Well, I will say what Malachi said to this one. This is, yes, dear ones, in this book by Frank Russell, there was some truth to the fiction. The aliens depicted within its pages were based on the Archons and the Draco, as well as several AI controllers. It was good beings that infiltrated the Cabal at the time, as well as over-anxious Cabal misinformation agents that helped to release this material. It will be seen as real in not too long from now. Only 60 to 70% is factually based. The rest, as I have said, was misinformation integrated into the story. Next question.
All right. Is the mini ice age that started about 5 years ago going to be in the 5D timeline, and how is that affecting crops and where people should live?
Okay, this is another very direct answer on the part of Malachi. Dear ones, this is simply not going to happen. Live anywhere you wish. Next question.
Okay, and the next question that came through was, anything to say about the explosion in Detroit about January 13th?
And we return to yet another direct answer by Malachi. This was a false flag! Exclamation. Next question.
All right, next question is, please compare the results of meditation of the Buddhist style versus the Merkaba style.
All right. This was another direct answer, but this was also informative at the same time. I will say only this to this subject. All this work you humans put into yourselves through for the sake of relaxation is simply not necessary. Just be happy within your current moment. If this makes you happy, then it works. If it causes stress, then it doesn't. Next question.
Okay, next question. I've heard Christopher speak about retrieving a soul shard from the actual stomach of a Draco because the Greys and Draco feed off our energy. Why doesn't the shard decompose?
All right. The shard does indeed get used up as the Draco lives out its lifespan. A human soul shard can provide a Draco with centuries of life force. It gets canceled out as time passes.
The next part of that question was, why can you still find it?
Sometimes I do not find all of the shards. Sometimes it's only partially there. Sometimes only a small portion remains.
And the next part to that question was, does Christopher have to return to the initial moment in time when it was first digested to be able to find it?
I have had to do that very thing a few times before and get the Draco to literally cough it up. Or I just call in guides to assist with that. Since all of time is existing all at once, I can just flip through time frames like one can flip TV channels until I locate the time frame where the shard was stolen.
And the question continues on, or is it that energy can't be destroyed but only can change shape? Does the soul shard remain intact, but it is repurposed as a building block of the entity who harvested it? Does the blue shard remain forever blue, or with some time is consumed and repurposed?
I have discovered that shards get canceled out by the opposite opposing force, being the Draco's cellular structure and or energy digestive capability. The shards do remain forever blue or purple within them. This is how I know they have stolen human core energy. The coloring shines through their scales.
All right, the next question has to do with Donald Trump. Is Trump aware of our galactic families?
This was yet another answer on the part of Malachi. Yes and no. He, like many humans walking the surface of the earth, is memory blind. but his higher soul, which is from the Venusian colonies, guides him even now. What I mean by Venusian colonies is this. I've made reference on many other shows to Valiant Thor and the book known as Stranger at the Pentagon, which is now a movie. That's a story of Valiant Thor and how he infiltrated the Pentagon and his story thereof. That's where the Venusian colonies comes from.
Okay, and then the second part to that question, and is this a big part of the alliance that these two men, Trump and Putin have, with non-terrestrials supporting them? Can you confirm this?
Another answer on the part of Malachi? Yes, I can. But as I have previously stated, Trump, as well as Vladimir Putin, are both memory blinded. However, they do interact with each other and do indeed feel something is amiss, quote-unquote, with the world. Putin travels off-world to some of the ICC's inter-system facilities on almost a regular basis. Putin may be unaware of his soul's mission. His higher self, quote-unquote, guides him to humanity's highest good.
So, Chris, before we go to the next question, since Malachi mentioned the ICC, do you want to at least tell everybody what the ICC stands for?
Yes, this has also been mentioned in movies over the years. If people have ever seen the movie Aliens from the 1986 movie, this was also, there was some disclosure about the ICC in that movie. It's the intergalactic corporate conglomerate that is the cabal's main business arm, if you will, throughout the system. It has variations of that name. You might hear other people calling it slightly different, but they have basically total control of the system, Mars, the moon, various other planetoids in our system that are hidden, the asteroid belt. They have a mining operation going on there. They own almost all businesses here on the Earth's surface. Boeing is one of them, and various other corporations such as Microsoft Network and Apple are two of which on the Earth's surface.
Okay, thanks for explaining that a little more in depth. The next question, again, I'll read the whole thing. I have a question about prescription drugs and the effects on the etheric body, higher self, and anything else you think we should know. On an episode of Understanding Sasquatch, Christopher Beakley spoke about this concerning lisinopril. If I recall correctly, he called it a cabal drug, and it was made from snake poison. I, too, have been prescribed lisinopril, as well as Adderall, Suboxone, etc. Any information you have would be greatly appreciated.
All right. I get questions like this quite a bit, actually. I must state before answering this question, however, that I am not, and I repeat, not a doctor, and I will not be giving medical advice.
Okay, so that was a sampling of some of the emails that we received. So what we'd like to do now is see if anyone from the audience at all would like to ask a live question. So again, if you want to ask a live question, all you have to do now is hit *6, and then that will prompt you to go into the question queue. So again, we'll see if anybody wants to ask a question.
All right, we have someone in the queue with the phone number ending in 7153, a Russell Crunk. I will unmute you now. Welcome to the lifting, Russell. What's your question?
Chris, I think that's my phone number. This is Beverly.
Oh, it came up as Russell on here. Sorry about that, Beverly.
Oh, okay, that's my son-in-law. I'm sorry. I'm dumb, too. My question is, there's an awful lot of ugly things being talked about Obama, and I'd like to... I like Obama. I love Obama. I felt all along that he was a good guy, and I'd like to know if I was wrong. And how can I talk to these people who talk so ugly about him?
Well, for one, people that talk ugly, in general, it's just best not to engage them at all. I'll talk about that for just a second. Anybody, I've run into people, family members, and the like that tend to have opposing views on politics and the like, and I just tend not to engage it anymore. All right. Next, anyone else want to call into the Q&A queue? All right. We have another caller in here with the phone number ending in 7639. What's your question?
Hi, Chris. Hi, Jody. This is Jennifer. And how wonderful you are on the air. I enjoy listening to you, and I'm learning quite a lot as a novice. So I have an interesting question. It's kind of going to tail in on the last caller and Valiant Thor. This walk-in for Putin, and I apologize, I'm not familiar with these walk-ins, but you allege that, or were told that Putin and Trump really were working together for the higher good of us all? And
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So I'm kind of curious with all these negatives about these two world leaders. Do you know specifically what this higher good is? And is this walk-in for Putin a benevolent spirit like Valiant Thor? And are they going to work together?
Oh, that's actually a fantastic question, and I've heard variations of this question before. There is a concept out there that Joanna here has coined the rub. And when you have a rub in society, like what I was saying to the previous caller, and a rub in society does the opposite of what people would want. They're very loud and out there to an opposite of what a good and kind public would want. And they exist for that purpose, to show people what they don't want in their lives. To go into Putin, at first I didn't believe this myself, in regards to Putin, especially with his reputation. And I just had a very hard time believing this until my guides brought this to the table, saying that he was one of these societal rubs, and even if he did not know it himself. And the walk-in process, the person doesn't necessarily have to be physically that person. They can indeed actually be in control or controlled by that particular entity. Say you have yourself and you have another entity channeling through you, but then over time that entity is essentially kind of takes the place of the energy that you once had. That is the walk-in process right there in a small nutshell. And it's these ET races' way of actually showing people, again, what they don't want in their society. Oh, and Joanna wants to actually answer the next part of this.
Yeah, so Jennifer, I've actually had this conversation trying to really gain a better perspective about why Donald Trump is actually the best person for the job. And, in reflection, it made me really realize, and the guides really seem to agree with this, a couple of things. If you don't like Donald Trump and you don't care for his antics or whatever, if you're that disturbed by him, what will tend to happen is that those people are going to turn off the TV, not listen to it, and they're going to now start co-creating in their minds what they think it should all be, how they think everyone should act, and they're going to actually even potentially start doing other things. Maybe it's just even hobbies. I'm going to go outside and garden, and I'm not going to listen to any of this anymore, which is actually what we need to do. We need to co-create another vision. We need to get ourselves involved in other things that bring us joy. And so those group of people are be so turned off by all this, they're going to start doing that. The other people still need the rub. They still haven't been able to define who they are. And so they're getting more of potentially what they don't want to be able to still define themselves, because they're not quite there yet, ready co-create a new way of being. And so that's kind of the understanding that was giving to me about some of the purposes as to why Donald Trump is who he is, but how he is actually working in the greater good.
So if I may, as a follow-up, if you don't mind, is this time when you keep talking about in your first blog these new energies about to enter into our society, our space, our atmosphere, whatever, is this to create something similar to like a 1776 or a response to the Depression, or these major centurion kind of activities? And if so, do you know, or can the Spirit share with you what that positive good is?
So I am actually going to answer this a little bit, but I actually think that's such a great question. I would like somebody to please come in and also expand on this. So the answer, in my understanding, is that these new energies that are streaming in are different and more expansive than the ones of those times. So that the energies coming in are different because we're trying to leave a world of duality. I know who I am by what I'm not, and entering into a reality of understanding better unity and love. So the energy stream to do that is actually different, but in that one sense, is it about kind of in a sense a type of revolution? Yes, but it's not a violent one. It's not whatever. It's about moving into the new energies.
I'm just curious if that means instead of right or wrong, it's more of when those big centurion events happened of not being center of self, but service to others. And I'm wondering if it's the service to others focus that's going to do away with the right and wrong.
I believe you're correct. But there is another aspect to this that I've come to find out. There's nothing wrong with serving yourself. You honor your own inner God. There's nothing wrong with that part of it. In serving your inner God, when becoming your inner God, you're actually doing everyone else a service. So you're actually both will be true, service to self, service to others, but it won't have an overly overbearing, malevolent connotation like it does now.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so Chris, I actually wanted to put a spin on this tonight. So since this is a Q&A, I wanted to see if any of the Galactics had a question for us.
That is actually that's an intriguing concept. I'll see who wants to raise their hand over here. It's like a school house where a bunch of students in the background are raising their hand, and apparently every single one of them in here is raising their hand. Okay, let's see. Who's the front of the line here? We have one from the dragon community. Lentazar is popping up here. And this is Joanna's guide, so we'll see what she has to ask. Interesting. She says, "What do I do to deal with these adverse and positive energies?" Okay, what do I personally do to deal with these adverse and positive energies? Well, the adverse ones, that's protection, like what we explained in at the beginning of the show and in the very first episode. The positive energies. Some of these positive energies can be quite, I don't want to say adverse, but quite, how can I put it, very high vibrational, and they might cause a little bit of friction in what we would be in the lower densities. How I deal with it is actually finding that, how can I put it, quiet space within my own mind, quieting my mind, calming my body, working on something that I take joy in. The reason I would have to do that for positive energy is that it might be too intense for me. See, there are a plethora of different densities. Humans at this stage of development cannot always handle even the positive energies. I have guides, they are very kind, very benevolent, but they couldn't even be in the room with me for more than a few minutes. So I deal with that by going to the quiet place, doing something that gives me joy, gives me happiness. I work on art projects, I work on crafts, I work on writing, work on books. So, Joanna, you wanted to answer more to that?
Yeah, because I think I have a little bit more, I'm going to say human response. So when a negative energy heads my way, it depends on whether or not I know it or not, because sometimes I don't. And what I tend to do is realize that I'm feeling some sort of symptomology. Something's going on. I'm getting in a bad mood. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting confused. I'm getting tired when I shouldn't be. And oftentimes that makes me frustrated and angry. And then I start getting upset even more. And then I start remembering, oh, yeah, I got to put my protection up. And, oh, yeah, I've got to ask my guides for help. And, oh, yeah, sometimes I get frustrated and I yell at my guides for not doing it already for me, and an occasional curse word. But basically, all of the above, because this is a skill we're learning and we're not perfected in it yet. So, I tend to do all of those things in quite a human way and get emotional. And then when I'm done with it all, I get tired and I go to sleep. So in the new energies that are streaming in, what happens is that sometimes I seem to have symptomology too. And sometimes I don't know which one it is. So in general, for me personally, when I am feeling tired or not knowing what's going on, I basically just tend to try and figure out which one. And when I'm not sure, I just ask for protection. I surround myself with my own light. And when I've had enough, it's time for me to take a nap. So I just wanted to put that in there because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are just learning this just like me.
Yes, actually, I agree with that. I was actually censoring myself just a hair because in times of adverse energies, there tends to be a lot of cursing and temper tantrums. But that's not always the case. And she laughs now because there are some times where that is the case. And that was something I was not going to bring up, but she brought it up. So, yes, there will be those times where you're going to be cursing the guide's name and cursing the Archons and the Draco and anybody allowing them through. So, yes, that does happen. Let's see. Let's see if anybody other guide wants to come through. Okay. It's Malachi who's here this time. Let's see what he has to say. And he's either going to give a serious question or a smart-ass one. So let's see. Let's see here. Is he going to ask a question or just stand here? Okay. All right. He's just going to stand here? No. Okay. He's actually giving a question. Interesting. That's a very strange question, but I'll translate it. He says, "How do I cope with times where my sight is either not the greatest or inactive?" Oh, that's very interesting.
Tell the truth.
I do not always cope the best with situations like that. I prefer to be very clear and have everything in crystal clarity. There are times where my abilities are canceled out and I feel like I'm just in a dull state or a dark room or tired or something like that, and I'm not very happy. In that instance is when I'm the most human, because most people that I know of don't have their abilities as heightened as I brought them. I'm not trying to be egocentric in any way, shape, or form. I am just saying that the guides over a period of time taught me how to get the things up to this level. So when I'm set aback by other entities, by the guides trying to block me from negativity, or just by some days that the abilities aren't as sharp, Yeah, I'm not too happy when that happens, especially when I'm trying to do my work for others. And it's very interesting that Malachi brought this up on live radio. Okay, Joanna?
And then you know what? I have to tell you guys what really happens to us. What really happens to us is that after we're done having our human moment, for some reason, we find something to start laughing about. And then the guides are here, and then we're all goofing off, and we just start laughing. And laughter is one of the best medicines out there to raise your vibration. So, if you have that ability to just find silly things to laugh about, all you have to do is just get rolling a little bit with it. And before you know it, in that laughter, that's probably one of the best things you can do, besides literally resting sometimes. But just finding humor and being silly and laughing is going to probably help you more than anything out there right now. And we actually do a lot of that here. So just wanted to add that.
Yes, we do laugh quite often. In fact, earlier today I was coming up with a joke about the Draco plundering and pillaging across the galaxy that had the guides actually laughing. If I could remember the entire thing, I would say it right now. But that's the point she was trying to make. When we weren't feeling too great today, but when we started laughing about it, we were more upbeat and we were able to actually accomplish the show this evening. So, on that note, I'm going to leave it open for a couple more questions from the audience here. If there are none, then I will end the show with the blessing and then go on to announcements. So if there's anyone left who wants to ask a question, now would be a good time. All right. I am unmuting you. Beverly, I believe that's you again.
Is it all right that I come back?
Oh, of course, of course.
Oh, thank you. I have a question about the chemtrails. Why are we having so many? I'm having as many or more now than I had a couple of years ago.
Actually, this is a very interesting question as well. I've heard a variety of different answers from different galactics on this subject. And one of the most prevalent answers I get from a lot of them within these chemtrails are a group of nanites that I've come to nickname the harvesters. And they come down, the Cabal releases them down in these chemtrails, and they get into people's water supplies, they get into the bodies and start to drain people of the energy. This is another adverse entity that pops up. I'm not saying every single chemtrail has this. I don't want to make anybody paranoid, so sorry if anybody's panicking right now. There's another thing that I have come to find out very recently, two things actually, about chemtrails. There are X's that people might see forming in the skies periodically. I came to find out that they're actually the Cabal is actually searching for something on the ground. This usually happens, I see this in the skies above our house or close to it after I've done a major channeling of some sort. I usually will see these. Even though I found out the X means something very different in symbolism, for the Cabal, it means that the double X's means they're looking for something. And I've also seen Roman numerals in the sky as well. I've seen an entire code number written in the sky in chemtrails before. This usually means it's some kind of set of coordinates or some kind of code they're giving to another group, either on the ground or in space somewhere. So those are the things I know about chemtrails.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Beverly, for coming.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, if we have no one else this evening, I will now go to the blessing at the end of the show, the affirmation and blessing. May all who have heard this show tonight be blessed and feel the joy within their own hearts. May it release all burdensome weights from their soul, and may all begin to finally see all that is right in front of their very eyes. This was from Malachi.
Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the first question and answer show of The Lifting. And we look forward to chatting with you guys again next Tuesday, January 24th. Take care, guys, and have a great night.
Good night, everybody.